This Week in E-Commerce, episode 133. Mal here, flying solo because Alex is out sick. We've actually got a really big episode, and to be honest, I actually had one recorded and in the can, ready to publish, until the Live Nation verdict came in. And I'm going to get into that because that's one which is a topic which I'm really, really passionate about, and I want to make sure that I do cover it off this week. So let's dive straight into it. We've got 2 quickies and 3 deep dives. So the first quickie we're going to cover off is Etsy have announced a total ban on animal furs. And now this is across the entire platform, and it comes into effect from the 11th of August, 2026. Now, this is going to cover all animals which have been killed primarily for their pelts, such as mink, fox, rabbits, and it applies regardless of the age or origin of the product. So vintage furs are also going to be included as well. So there's going to be no loopholes on this. Then there will be exclusions such as taxidermy and also byproducts such as leather, sheepskin, wool, mohair. Those are still fine to sell. But how we got here is actually really interesting because this came about due to a 58-day protest by the Coalition to Abolish the Fur Trade, which protested in over 50 protests across 17 cities. Now, these activists actually disrupted Etsy's live investor presentation at the Morgan Stanley TMT conference in San Francisco in March, and they confronted the CEO and the CFO on stage in front of institutional investors. So sellers have been notified directly, and listings will be pulled ahead of the August deadline. Now, the fur part is almost irrelevant to this because it's more about how quickly this can happen, where activist pressure can quickly lead to platform policy changing and then sellers being deplatformed with very little notice. And this is a pattern which has happened again and again over the last few years, particularly as people become more aware of the risks of different products and regulation starts to catch up with innovation as well. So if you are in a marketplace, you really need to consider your category and if it's something which can disappear overnight. Now, there's no reason to panic right away, but it is important to really think about how at risk you are on these platforms and whether you're reliant on different advertising or sales channels to market them because they can very quickly pull it away. So for instance, Google have a lot of restrictions in terms of what you can and can't put in ads, as does Meta, and they can update those policies very quickly, which means that your ads may not serve, which means your product may not sell. So you always need to think about how much are you at risk in any one of these? How concentrated are you in any one of these platforms, either through marketing or whether on a sales channel, to make sure that you do have an exit plan or at least a plan B as well. So I'll be curious to see what happens with Amazon and eBay, whether they do also follow Etsy's lead. Not sure how much sales they actually attribute to that product, but it's definitely one to think about. So from an ethical point of view, it's definitely the right call, but commercially for retailers, it is something which does present a real risk if you are in a risky category. Now, a second quickly is that the AFR has reported recently that Australians have started stockpiling baked beans and tinned tomatoes like there's no tomorrow. Now, this has come as a result of the rising geopolitical tension over in Iran, but then also greater cost of living pressures as well. Now, this is classic consumer scarcity response, the same as what we saw during COVID as well. So why this matters is that it's just a bit of a demand signal about what could be happening in the market. It's not necessarily something we need to be taking action on immediately, but it's something which is a pattern which we need to observe in that panic events lead to panic buying as well. And there could be a short-term spike in demand, particularly when you're thinking about, non-perishable, shelf-stable goods, toilet paper, bulk purchases, anything like that, which does lead to that bringing forward of sales of that. So on one hand, you need to make sure that you are stocked up to be able to capitalize on it as well. But on the other hand, you need to be aware that there's likely to be a vacuum as well of people buying these products if they bulk buy and they don't end up getting used. Not much need for toilet paper after everyone filled up entire rooms full of toilet paper around Australia around COVID time. So this is a time to really think about your demand forecasting, to think about, am I in a category where people are likely to panic buy? And if so, how do I make sure that I prepare for it, but not necessarily overinvest in case demand doesn't arrive? At the same time as well, really think about your logistics, your 3PL, your supply chain, your fulfillment to make sure that you can fulfill these orders if this demand comes. And I'm hoping it doesn't, that this spike isn't anything major. It is just people freaking out, but we'll see. So definitely keep an eye on that. Now, the reason why we've delayed the release of this episode is that Live Nation in the United States have been found guilty of running an illegal monopoly. Now, while this is to do with concerts and venues, there are broader implications for retail, in particular for monopoly power and how this affects platforms. So what happened was that yesterday in Manhattan, a jury found Live Nation and Ticketmaster guilty of running an illegal monopoly. And they found in favor of a number of states, so 33 states who made a claim against them for this. Now, the Department of Justice, the DOJ, reportedly tried to settle under the orders of President Trump back in March, but the states refused that settlement. And they decided to sue Live Nation directly. So what happened here is that the jury found that Ticketmaster were unlawfully maintaining a monopoly for ticketing services at major concert venues. Now, these are concert venues which Live Nation also owns. Live Nation owns a number of large venues around America, but also Australia as well. I think they own about 7 major venues here. And they unlawfully required artists to use these venues in order to use their promotional services as well, because Live Nation not only operates the ticketing and the venue, they also provide concert promotion as well. And through all this, they were also able to levy additional surcharges onto fans as well. So fans were overcharged for concert tickets as a result. So roughly about $1.72 it was found per ticket. So generally small, but multiply that across hundreds of millions of tickets sold, such as you can imagine a Taylor Swift tour, and it becomes enormous. We're talking about billions of dollars here. So Live Nation have been operating this vertical integration, owning the venues, owning the concert promotion, owning the ticketing platform, and really putting a lot of pressure on the unit economics for anyone who operates outside that system, because Ticketmaster also controls 70% of ticketing at major concert venues. Now, if this sounds familiar, it sounds a lot like Amazon. So Live Nation account for roughly 80% of the total ticketing market, which means that any big tours have to generally use their system. And to make matters worse is that conversations between some Live Nation staff actually came to light where they were quite open about the fact that they were robbing fans blind. Now, Live Nation's defense was that those were individual staffers who were speaking carelessly and it wasn't company policy, but the jury didn't buy that at all. So the thing is with this, no one is going to jail, but there will be remedies to look at how much the penalty will actually be for this. So I don't know how much it's actually going to be, but it's a significant antitrust case because it could result in the breakup of Live Nation. And I think this is something which people have been really clamoring for in the US, particularly as all these monopolies or duopolies really start to bubble up around a number of industries. And from a retail perspective, you look at the dominance of Amazon. You look at platforms like Google, who have YouTube, Google Ads, the search business, Gemini, and then also, the likes of Facebook and Meta as well, who own a number of the platforms in this space. So the damages for Live Nation could end up in the hundreds of millions of dollars, given the amount of people who they've overcharged. But worse, it's around the divestiture of the business, breaking up the company so that Ticketmaster will have to break up from Live Nation. Now, obviously, they've got to challenge this as they would, and we'll see how that pans out. But this is something which we're seeing in Australia as well. In the music space where there is a lot of consolidation around certain companies, which means that not much actually goes back to the artist. With Blues Fest, which was recently cancelled, there's been a lot of stories out there about how a lot of the risk is actually on the artist. If a festival gets cancelled, they lose a lot of the money because what they get paid up front is very minuscule for that, because the economics are definitely not in their favor. But also you look at where retail is headed as well and how we are consolidating so much around very, very few platforms, which is why it's so important to have competition in any space as well. With the tech platforms like we just talked about, they have that full vertical integration. We talked last week about Amazon applying an emergency fuel levy on their sellers. This becomes a tax and they can get away with it because who else are you going to go with? They own the pipes, they own the advertising, they own the marketplace, they own the customer. So if you don't sell with them, well, where else are you going to sell? So that becomes value extraction from there. So this is something which I'm going to be watching very, very closely, and I think you should too as well, about where this goes. Because if they go after Live Nation and they take them down, who is next? Is the Department of Justice now going to be then looking for the next target on this to look at who else can we actually break up to make this fairer for the consumer, which is what it's all about at the end of the day. How do we make sure we have customers who are able to spend their money freely, and that money is actually going to a diverse range of merchants rather than just to a few? Our second deep dive is a really great one because it looks at what a successful D2C exit looks like in 2026. And I'm talking about Alive Body. Now, Alive Body is a beauty and skincare brand started by twins Alyssa and Lysandra Fraser, who were previously on the block. They have reportedly are now seeking buyers for Alive Body. They built this brand during COVID from scratch back in 2020. No outside investors, fully founder funded and owned, and now they're looking to exit. And this is a great D2C success story because they have grown like no one's business. In a very short period of time, they now have 90 plus products across 7 different categories, over 850 stockists across Australia and New Zealand, and are projected to be turning over roughly around $30 million in the last financial year. But what makes them even better is that they have an iconic packaging, an interlocking bottle design that is totally recognizable and, dare I say, becoming quite iconic and recognizable for the brand. So a distinctive brand asset. Now, this is interesting because, as we've talked about before, this is a time where there doesn't really seem to be too much M&A activity in retail because margins are down, consumer confidence is low, and investors are getting a little bit gun shy when it comes to retail, unlike what they were like when Allbirds publicly listed. But what is happening here is that this is actually looks to be a really great time for Alive Body to be exiting because they seem to be at a natural inflection point in their growth where they've really grown quite quickly over the last 5 years. And they're at this point where they need to take it to the next level. So what you're buying isn't a distressed asset. You're buying the future potential for Alive because it's pretty clear when you look at where the business is right now is that their best days are still ahead of them. There's still quite a significant runway ahead. And the fact that they haven't needed to take any investment in this means that there's no dilution as well. There's a really clean cap table to offer for the founders, but also for the buyer as well. Because in order for them to take that next stage of growth, there does require additional investment, both from capital, infrastructure, distribution, marketing, and likely operating skills, which the team currently doesn't have. So as a retailer, it's better to sell when you have those tailwinds rather than fighting what those headwinds could be. And beauty is at an all-time high right now. So beauty M&A multiples are higher than any other category. So on average last year, beauty multiples were sitting at about 15 times EBITDA, which is huge. In retail nowadays, you'd be lucky to get 1 or 2. So this is significantly above what the broader average it is. So from there, you can kind of make an assumption about what Live's EBITDA is on $30 million revenue. But for the buyer, they're going to get a great brand with great brand equity, a really distinctive visual identity, and a proven network as well, both in their D2C business, which is about 50%, I believe, and a wholesale distribution network as well. And also having the founders on board, celebrity adjacent, that's really, really good as well. So it's a product which and a brand which isn't just a single product. They've got a range of products as well. They've got a lot of great distinctive brand assets. They've got ethical and sustainability credentials baked in from the very start. I think it's a really good buy for the right buyer as well. The one risk to keep in mind, though, is that it is a founder-led brand, so how much the founders' identities are tied in with that and whether that's something which where the founders will stay on board, I'm not sure yet. Maybe we'll find out if a deal does happen. But it's really something for anyone who's looking to exit to really think about whether you are selling with headwinds or tailwinds behind you. And if you have the tailwinds, then absolutely look for it. Make sure you've got those great unit economics. Make sure you've got distinctive brand assets. Make sure you're diversified with your revenue and you're actually growing as well. And you're not reliant on a single product. Because if you have those behind you, you can command generally good multiples as well. And our final deep dive for the day is kind of a mash of two stories in Instagram shoppable reels and also the creator economy and how that's continuing to evolve. So last week, Adam Mosseri, the founder and head of Instagram, announced that there will now be commissions paid for products which are tagged and bought from Reels. Now, this is a new ad products option in the Reels publishing flow where creators will be able to publish a URL, which includes an affiliate link or search from a brand's catalog, and will be able to promote individual items with real-time pricing. And people will be able to click on that product and be redirected to a purchase either on the brand's website or app and buy directly from there, but mainly the fact that they're actually going to be able to be tracked. So this rollout is going to happen in the US, Brazil, India, Indonesia, Thailand, with the UK currently doing a limited one. No confirmed participation for Australia just yet, so I wouldn't get too excited, but definitely like TikTok Shop, the vaporware, which we haven't seen here yet after 3 years, definitely do keep an eye on it because it's generally exciting for creators, but also shows where Instagram is also trying to catch up. Now, my take on this is that it feels a little bit like too little too late, but we've kind of said that about Facebook many times, but they tend to jump in on things after they've already become big. But even having said that though, TikTok Shop and creators monetizing products sales is still relatively small. It's roughly about 9% of what creators overall make, but that's still something which is gaining traction. So it's clear that you can see that Meta have seen the tea leaves, they've read the tea leaves, seen what's happening with TikTok Shop and how that's booming around Asia, how that's booming in the US and really picking up and really wanting to get on that. So it makes sense for Meta to get in on that action by offering an alternative to TikTok Shop. And they have the platform, they have the audience, they have the attention. So I think they can definitely monetize it better than any other brand out there. So it'll be interesting to see whether this actually takes away from TikTok Shop. But TikTok Shop has had this natively inbuilt into it for years. And affiliate links and affiliate commerce has been around for the better part of 2 decades now. And there's a lot of other platforms like LTK, ShopMy, who've been doing this for quite a while. So it'll be interesting to see whether creators will be willing to change their habits away from the LTKs and ShopMys of the world and switch to a platform like Instagram, where they'll be able to do this. Now, historically, fashion hasn't worked too well on the likes of TikTok Shop, and that's where the ShopMys and LTKs come in. But if this comes in to Australia and fashion gains traction there, I wonder whether people will make that switch. Creators will make that switch from those other traditional affiliate platforms to shoppable reels. So this is something which we see this time and time again with Facebook acquiring or releasing new features which are copycats, whether it be buying Instagram, launching Threads, or now with this. But it's something which you really need to be keeping an eye on to see how this picks up and when it makes its way over to Australia. Because this also dovetails really nicely into how people are starting to rethink how we measure the creator economy as well. Now, measuring creators on those traditional metrics like reach, impressions, follower count, engagement rate, we've quickly realized that those metrics don't really mean a whole lot. And we really need to be looking at creators through a different lens, depending on how we're trying to use them, whether we're trying to use them for awareness or for conversion as well. And with new metrics coming in, you can see a lot of these platforms starting to look at attributed revenue to a creator through different stages of the funnel, looking at the lifetime value of creators and creator acquired customers as well, whether a creator led to someone new buying your brand and what their lifetime value is, but also the brand lift and conversion rate from creators. Because the thing is, the investment in creator advertising is growing more and more. As we've seen with Meta talk about this quite a lot, TikTok have been championing this for a while, creator content generally performs much better than non-creator content, the in-house generated content. So there's a huge investment going on right now into creator advertising. So this is an area where you really need to nail down what metrics you're going to be using to measure your creators. So making sure that in your ad platforms, in your organic platforms, you are able to look at them and understand which creators lead to higher revenue outcomes for your business, helping to acquire new customers as well. Because the lack of measurement in creators at the moment are holding back who we choose and who we choose to use. There's still a lot of people who default to large creators with big followings rather than actually looking at which creators are actually the most effective as well. So we need to start treating creators like a performance channel, like anywhere else. So not just a media buy where we're buying impressions, we're buying a follow account, because generally when you buy that, it doesn't really lead to that great outcomes. We really need to be looking at what sort of attribution can we assign to that. And you know my feelings about attribution, where attribution is not the be all and end all, but you need to be able to look at a conversion level, is this actually leading to positive outcomes? How can we actually track that? How can we actually see if a creator is helping us reach a new audience as well? So this is a space where there's going to be a lot of new features around in terms of how we're going to be looking at measuring creators moving forward as the investment in this space continues to grow. So right now, don't overthink it. Just get started on how you can think about measuring creators. Think about whether you're using unique discount codes or at least affiliate links to make sure that we're tracking the revenue coming back to Shopify or your e-commerce platform of choice, making sure any links they're using, have UTMs in there. They've got link in bio traffic. It's all being tagged, and you can see that in GA4 because it's going to be super important to make sure we can start measuring what tangible incremental value creators are driving back to e-commerce. All right, that's all we got time for this week. I did promise a shorter episode, but with a Live Nation one, I couldn't resist. I had to go and publish this one again. That's a super exciting story. Definitely one as a big music and concert goer, I will be continuing to follow. A Live Body, what a great story. A South Australian brand as well. Super proud to have them flying the flag and looking for an exit. Really exciting there. Alex will be back next week. We'll be at Retail Fest in a couple of weeks' time. So if you did enjoy this episode and you got value from it, please subscribe, leave a review, tell your friends. It's the best way to help us grow and reach a new audience. But in the meantime, keep innovating, keep growing, and keep selling. And we'll see you back next week.